The air in the Oasis diner was thick enough to chew, a greasy cocktail of frying bacon, stale coffee, and the acrid tang of cigarette smoke. Outside on Route 17, the world was a bleary smear of rain, and the neon sign, a palm tree leaning against a giant donut, buzzed and sputtered, fighting a losing battle against the encroaching New Jersey dusk. It was November 1983, and a deep, cynical cold was setting in, the kind that promised a long, miserable winter. I was on my third cup of mud water, trying to ignore the low throb behind my eyes, when the bell above the door jangled like a fire alarm. She blew in on a gust of wet wind, a spectacle in a sodden trench coat the color of red wine. Her hair, a cascade of big, dark curls, was plastered to her cheeks. She didn't look like she belonged in a roadside joint off the highway. She looked like she'd just stepped off a movie set, all dramatic angles and wide, frightened eyes. She scanned the room, her gaze skating over a trucker, hunched over a meatloaf special, and a couple of kids sharing a milkshake in a sticky booth. Her eyes landed on me. Maybe it was the lone wolf vibe, the decent suit under my own worn raincoat, or just the fact that I was the only one not staring at her like she'd dropped from Mars. She marched over, her heels clicking on the checkerboard linoleum. "Are you Jack Malone?" Her voice was low, husky, a hint of a New York accent sanded down by money and education. "Depends who's asking, and more importantly, who's paying," I said, stirring my coffee. The private investigator gig wasn't as glamorous as the movies made it out. Most of my work was catching shoplifters for a department store chain or digging up dirt for divorce lawyers. This dame, though, she screamed trouble of a more expensive variety. "My name is Evelyn Croft," she said, sliding into the vinyl booth opposite me. She didn't offer a hand. "My husband is Arthur Croft." The name hit me like a punch. Arthur Croft. Croft Electronics. The guy was a household name, a titan of industry. His face was on the cover of Forbes in the business section of the Times. He was the embodiment of the new 80s greed is good ethos, a man who'd turned a small radio parts business into a consumer electronics empire. His commercials, with their synth-pop jingles and slick visuals, were all over TV. "Let me guess," I said, leaning back. "The old man's playing around. You want pictures for the prenup." She shook her head, a tight, frantic motion. Water droplets flew from her hair. "It's not that. He's missing, Mr. Malone." "Missing? For how long?" "3 days. He didn't come home from the office on Friday. He hasn't called. It's not like him." "Not at all." She fumbled in her purse, a sleek leather number that probably cost more than my car, and pulled out a photograph. It was a professional shot, the two of them at some charity gala. Arthur Croft was a big man, with a broad, confident smile, a head of silver hair, and a tan that spoke of vacations I'd never afford. He looked every inch the captain of industry. Evelyn, beside him, was stunning, but younger. A second wife, I figured. Trophy material. "Have you gone to the cops?" A flash of panic in her eyes. "No police. Arthur, he was a very private man. There are business dealings, sensitive things. The publicity would be a disaster. And the police, they'll ask questions, dig into things. I just want him found, quietly." She placed a thick, sealed envelope on the table between us. It wasn't subtle. "There's $5,000 in there as a retainer. Find my husband, Mr. Malone, please." I looked at the envelope. $5,000 was more than I'd see in 2 months of catching sticky-fingered stock boys. It was mortgage payments. It was a new transmission for the olds. It was also a bucket of worms. Rich guys like Croft didn't just vanish. They got disappeared by rivals, by the mob, by their own bad decisions. But the money was talking, and it was speaking my language. I picked up the envelope. It felt heavy, solid, real. "All right, Mrs. Croft. You've hired yourself a detective. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." The Croft residence was less of a house and more of a compound, a sprawling monument to 80s excess carved into the wooded hills of Alpine, just across the state line. It was all sharp angles, walls of glass, and pale stone. A bronze sculpture of something abstract, twisted in the center of a manicured lawn. A Hispanic man in gardener's greens was meticulously raking leaves into a perfect pile, his movements slow and deliberate. Evelyn Croft led me inside. The interior was cold, a showroom more than a home. White carpets, white furniture, more chrome and glass. It felt sterile, unlived in. A massive painting that looked like someone had thrown up neon paint dominated one wall. The air smelled of lemon polish and money. "His study is this way," Evelyn said, her voice echoing in the vast space. Arthur Croft's inner sanctum was a different beast. Dark wood paneling, shelves lined with leather-bound books that looked like they'd never been cracked, and a desk the size of my kitchen table. It was a room meant to convey power and tradition. I started there. The desk was meticulously organized. Blotter, pin set, a framed photo of him and Evelyn on a sailboat. I pulled on a pair of thin leather gloves, a habit from my time on the force, and started going through the drawers. Stationery, contracts, a half-empty bottle of expensive scotch. Nothing jumped out. Then, in the bottom right drawer, tucked under a stack of financial reports, I found it. A small black leather-bound appointment book, the kind old-school guys used before digital organizers. I flipped it open. The entries were in a tight, precise script. Meetings, flight times, dinners. I went back to the week he disappeared. Friday, November 4th. The day he vanished. The entry was simple. 7:30 p.m. Storage locker, 12B. Final payment. That was it. No name, no location. Just storage locker, 12B. Final payment for what? "Mrs. Croft?" I called out. She appeared in the doorway, wringing her hands. "Do you know what this refers to? A storage locker?" She frowned, coming closer to look. "No. Arthur handled all his private business himself. We have an attic, a basement. We don't need a storage locker." I tucked the book into my coat pocket. "I'm going to need a list of everyone who worked closely with him, his secretary, his partners, his drivers." She nodded, looking pale. "Of course. His personal assistant, Cynthia Blair, would know. She's at the corporate office in Paramus." Before I could ask anything else, a voice cut through the silence from the hall. "Evie? Who's here? I saw a car out front." A man stepped into the study. He was in his late 20s, with the kind of perfectly feathered blonde hair and healthy, all-American good looks that belonged on a soap opera. He wore a tight-fitting polo shirt and designer jeans. He looked me up and down with open suspicion. "This is Jack Malone, David," Evelyn said, her tone shifting, becoming more guarded. "He's helping me with something. Jack, this is my brother, David Vance." David's eyes narrowed. "Helping with what? What's going on, Evie? You've been a mess for days." He took a step toward me, his posture aggressive. "Who are you?" "I'm a friend of the family," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Just stopping by." "Bullshit," David spat. "I know a cop when I see one. Private, right? What's this about? Arthur? Did that bastard finally screw up big enough that you need a PI? David, that's enough." Evelyn's voice was sharp, but there was a tremor in it. "No, it's not. You've been walking on eggshells around that man for years. If he's in trouble, we have a right to know. I have a right to know, after everything I've done for this family." There was a history here, a current of resentment that ran deep. David Vance was a leech, I figured, living off his sister's wealthy husband, nursing some kind of grudge. "It's nothing, David," Evelyn insisted. "Please, just go back to the pool house." He glared at her, then at me, before turning on his heel and storming out. The tension in the room hung heavy after he left. "I'm sorry," Evelyn whispered. "David, he's protective, and he and Arthur didn't always see eye to eye." "On what?" I asked. "On everything. Business. Life. Arthur gave him a job in the marketing department, but David thinks it's beneath him. He has ambitions." She said the word like it was a disease. I made a mental note. David Vance. Disgruntled brother-in-law. Motive? Opportunity? It was too early to tell, but he'd just vaulted to the top of my list. I spent the next hour talking to the staff. The housekeeper, a stern Irish woman named Mrs. O'Malley, had seen nothing. The gardener, Miguel, barely spoke English and just shook his head nervously when I asked about Friday night. It was like the house itself had swallowed Arthur Croft whole. My next stop was the corporate headquarters of Croft Electronics. The building was a gleaming glass tower that screamed success. The lobby was a cavern of polished marble, with a giant, neon-lit logo spinning slowly on one wall. I got myself directed to the executive floor. Cynthia Blair was exactly what I expected Arthur Croft's personal assistant to be: efficient, sharp, and guarded. She was in her 40s, with a severe haircut and a no-nonsense pantsuit. Her office was a smaller, slightly less intimidating version of Croft's study. "Mr. Malone," she said after I'd flashed my license and explained I was working for Mrs. Croft. Her voice was cool, professional. "I've been worried sick. Mr. Croft is never out of touch." "Mrs. Croft said you'd be able to provide a list of his close associates," I said, "and maybe shed some light on his schedule last week." She nodded, turning to her computer terminal, a bulky, beige thing that hummed softly. "Of course, let me print that for you." As the dot matrix printer screeched to life, she swiveled back to me. His schedule was routine. Board meeting Monday, a trip to the manufacturing plant in Secaucus on Tuesday, investor lunch on Wednesday. Thursday was clear, and on Friday, he left early. Around 4 p.m., he said he had a private appointment. Did he say with who? No. He was preoccupied lately. Distant. There was a project he was working on. Something off the books. He was very secretive about it. Off the books? What kind of project? I don't know. He'd make calls from his private line, handle the paperwork himself. All I know is he named it Project Icarus. Icarus. The guy who flew too close to the Sunday, not a reassuring name. The printer spat out the last of the list. I took it. Names, titles, phone numbers. The inner circle of Arthur Croft's world. "One more thing," I said. "Do the names Storage Locker 12B mean anything to you?" Cynthia Blair's perfectly composed facade cracked for just a second. A flicker of something in her eyes. Fear? Recognition? It was gone as fast as it came. "No," she said a little too quickly. "I'm afraid not." She was lying. I was sure of it. But pushing her now would just make her clam up. I thanked her and left. The list folded in my pocket. The name, Project Icarus, echoing in my head. Back in my Oldsmobile, the heater fighting a losing battle against the damp cold, I looked over the list. Vice presidents, accountants, a head of R.D., and then a name I recognized, Frankie the Nose Santangelo. Title, Logistics Consultant. I knew Frankie. Everyone in North Jersey knew Frankie. He was a made guy with the Gambino crew. His logistics usually involved hijacked trucks and union intimidation. So Arthur Croft was playing with the big boys. That opened up a whole new world of possibilities. But first, I needed to find that storage locker. It was a needle in a haystack. Northern New Jersey was paved with storage facilities. I started calling around, using the old police routine, flashing my PI badge and a lot of bluster. It took the better part of the afternoon, hitting dead end after dead end, before I got a hit. "Yeah, we got a 12B. A bored-sounding manager at a place called A1 Secure Storage on the industrial fringes of Hackensack said. "Units under the name Smith, though. John Smith. Bingo." The A1 Secure Storage facility was a bleak place. A maze of identical corrugated metal units surrounded by a high chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. The rain had finally stopped, leaving everything slick and gleaming under the weak security lights. The place was deserted. I found Unit 12B. The padlock on the door was heavy-duty, but it was also new, shiny. It stood out against the rusting door. I looked around. No one in sight. From the trunk of my car, I retrieved a pair of bolt cutters. A good PI is nothing if not prepared. The thick shank of the lock snapped with a satisfying crack that echoed in the silent yard. I took a deep breath, holstered the cutters, and pulled the door up. It rolled open with a metallic shriek that sounded like a scream. The smell hit me first. Metallic, coppery, with a sweet, rotten undertone. The smell of death. The unit was mostly empty. A single, naked light bulb hung from the ceiling, but I didn't need to find the switch. The light from the parking lot spilled in, illuminating the scene in stark, horrific relief. Arthur Croft was on his back in the center of the concrete floor. His silver hair was matted with dark, dried blood. His eyes were open, staring sightlessly at the corrugated metal ceiling. He was still wearing his expensive suit, now rumpled and stained. The cause of death was obvious. The handle of a large, ornate knife. It looked like some kind of antique letter opener protruded from his chest. "Final payment, all right," Paid in full. I didn't touch anything. I just stood there, the cold seeping into my bones, the coppery smell filling my lungs. This changed everything. Evelyn Croft hadn't hired me to find her missing husband. She'd hired me to find his body. Or had she? The $5,000 in my pocket felt like it was burning a hole, tainted. I backed out of the unit, pulled the door down, and drove to the nearest payphone. I dropped in a quarter and dialed a number I knew by heart. Hackensack PD, Sergeant Miller. A gruff voice answered. Hey, Sarge. It's Jack Malone, a grunt. Malone. Christ, haven't heard from you in a dog's age? You still playing pretend detective? Something like that. Listen, I've got a present for you. A. 1 secure storage on Route 46, Unit 12B. You're going to find a body in there. Arthur Croft, the electronics guy. There was a long silence on the other end. I could almost hear the gears turning. Croft? Holy hell. You sure? I'm sure. Stabbed with what looks like a fancy knife. And you just happened to stumble upon him? A client hired me to find him. I got lucky. Or unlucky, depending on your point of view. Who's the client, Jack? That's confidential, Sarge. You know the drill. The crime scene's fresh. Well, a few days old but untouched. The lock was cut, but that was me. Do me a favor, will you? Keep my name out of the papers for as long as you can. I'd like to ask a few questions before everyone knows he's dead. Miller sighed, a sound of pure weariness. You always did bring me the weird ones, Malone. Fine. But you're coming down here to make a statement. And if you're holding out on me, I'm not. Scout's honor. Just give me a little breathing room. I hung up before he could argue. I leaned against the cool glass of the phone booth, watching the cars hiss by on the wet road. Arthur Croft was dead, and a whole lot of people who knew him were about to have a very bad day. My first instinct was to call Evelyn Croft, the grieving widow. But was she grieving? Or was she the one who'd arranged the final payment? She'd been adamant about no police. She'd handed me $5,000 in cash. She'd known about the storage locker, or at least she'd led me to the book that contained its secret. I got back in the olds and pointed it toward Alpine. The mansion was lit up like a Christmas tree when I pulled into the driveway. 2 cars were parked haphazardly near the front door, a sleek BMW and a flashy Firebird Trans Am that screamed David Vance. I didn't bother with the bell. I walked right in. Evelyn was in the vast living room, pacing. David was pouring himself a drink at a wet bar that was bigger than my entire kitchen. A third man was there, one I recognized from the list Cynthia Blair had given me. Richard Shaw, Croft's head of research and development. He was a nerdy type, with thick glasses and a bad comb-over, wringing his hands together nervously. Malone. Evelyn rushed over to me, her face pale. What is it? What's happened? The police called. They said they found Arthur. Where the hell have you been? David Vance demanded, slamming his glass down on the bar. Scotch sloshed over the side. And what's this about the cops? They found him, I said, my eyes locked on Evelyn. In a storage locker in Hackensack. He's dead, Mrs. Croft. Murdered. Evelyn let out a sharp gasp, her hand flying to her mouth. Her eyes went wide, and for a moment, I thought she might genuinely faint. She staggered back, collapsing onto the white sofa. It was a good performance. Maybe too good. Murdered? Richard Shaw squeaked, adjusting his glasses. My God, who would? Why? David Vance just stared, his face a mask of shock that quickly twisted into anger.
Murdered? Who did it? Was it that Santangelo creep? I told Arthur not to get involved with those people.
What people, David? I asked, turning my attention to him. The mob. Frankie Santangelo. Arthur was using him to strong-arm suppliers to keep the unions in line. It was only a matter of time before it blew up in his face. David, shut up! Evelyn hissed from the couch, tears now streaming down her face. You don't know what you're talking about. The hell I don't. He was playing a dangerous game, and now he's dead because of it. This is a disaster, Richard Shaw muttered, almost to himself. The timing. It couldn't be worse. I zeroed in on him. What timing, Mr. Shaw? He looked like a rabbit caught in headlights. Nothing. I just meant for the company. The new product launch. What's Project Icarus, Mr. Shaw? I asked. The name landed in the room like a live grenade. All 3 of them froze. Evelyn stopped crying. David stopped glaring. Shaw looked like he was about to be sick. "How do you know about that?" Shaw whispered. "I know a lot of things. What is it?" Shaw looked at Evelyn, then at David, seeking guidance, finding none. It was Mr. Croft's pet project. A new type of microchip. Revolutionary. It would have made everything else on the market obsolete. We were days away from the final prototype. He was very excited and very secretive. Secretive enough to get killed for? I pressed. I don't know. Maybe. The technology is worth millions, billions eventually. There are competitors who would kill to get their hands on it. The Japanese, they've been reverse engineering our products for years. It was a motive, a damn good one. Corporate espionage. It fit the 80s vibe perfectly. The doorbell rang, a deep, sonorous chime that echoed through the house. We all jumped. A moment later, Mrs. O'Malley led two men into the living room. They had cop written all over them, cheap suits, tired eyes, and an air of grim authority. The older one, a guy with a graying mustache and a world-weary slump to his shoulders, flashed a badge. "Mrs. Croft, I'm Lieutenant Markovic, Bergen County Homicide. This is Detective Colombo." Colombo was younger, leaner, with sharp eyes that were already taking inventory of the room and everyone in it. "We're sorry for your loss. We need to ask you a few questions." Evelyn nodded numbly. Markovic's eyes fell on me. "And you are?" "Jack Malone, private investigator. Mrs. Croft hired me this morning to locate her husband." Markovic's eyebrows went up. "And you found him awfully quick." "I got lucky. We'll need to talk to you too, separately." His tone made it clear it wasn't a request. The next few hours were a blur of questions and answers. I gave my statement, leaving out the part about the appointment book. I just said I'd been following leads and gotten a tip about the storage facility. They were suspicious, but they had nothing to hold me on. I was just the PI who'd stumbled onto the scene. I watched them work the room. Markovic was a bull, straightforward and blunt. Colombo was the opposite, quiet, almost deferential, asking seemingly innocuous questions that had sharp little hooks in them. He spent a long time talking to a terrified Richard Shaw about the technical specs of Project Icarus. He asked David Vance about his movements on Friday night. David claimed he'd been at a bar in the city, but he was hazy on the details. He asked Evelyn about her marriage. She played the distraught widow perfectly, painting a picture of a happy, devoted couple. I noticed she didn't mention the $5,000 cash. It was late when they finally left, warning everyone not to leave town. The second the door closed, the atmosphere in the room changed. David Vance rounded on me. "This is your fault. You led the cops right to us." "The cops were coming here anyway, genius," I said. "They found a body. The wife is always suspect number one. You think they wouldn't come knocking?" "I want you off this case," he snarled. "You've done enough damage." "I work for your sister, not you." I looked at Evelyn. She was sitting quietly, her hands folded in her lap, staring at the abstract painting on the wall. She seemed calmer now, resolved. "Well, Mrs. Croft, you want me to keep looking? Now that we know what we're looking for?" She met my gaze. Her eyes were dry now and clear. "Yes, Mr. Malone. I want you to find out who did this to my Arthur. More than ever." David threw his hands up in disgust and stormed out of the room, presumably back to his pool house. Richard Shaw mumbled excuses and practically fled into the night. I was alone with Evelyn Croft again. "They think I did it, don't they?" she said quietly. "It's their job to think it. The spouse is always the first guess, especially when the spouse is a beautiful younger wife with a lot to gain." I let that hang in the air for a moment. "Why no police, Evelyn?" "Really?" She looked down at her hands. Arthur was a complicated man. He had enemies. He did things. The police start digging, they won't just find who killed him. They'll drag his name, his company, through the mud. I wanted to avoid that. I thought maybe he'd just run off with some woman. I could have handled that. She trailed off, a fresh tear escaping down her cheek. This one seemed real. Or I was just a sucker for a pretty dame in distress. "The knife," I said. "The one in his chest. It looked old, fancy. Mean anything to you?" She shook her head. "No, I've never seen it before." I believed her. Or I wanted to. "I'll be in touch." I drove back to my cramped office above a laundromat in Fort Lee. The place smelled of stale cigarette smoke and fabric softener. I poured 3 fingers of cheap bourbon into a cloudy glass and sat at my desk, staring at the list of names from Croft Electronics. I had a murdered magnate, a secret project worth a fortune, a mob-connected consultant, a nervous R.D. head, a hostile, leeching brother-in-law, a beautiful, possibly duplicitous widow, and a pair of homicide detectives watching my every move. It was a hell of a stew, and I had a feeling it was about to start boiling over. The next morning, the story was all over the news. Arthur Croft found, dead, CEO slain. The media was having a field day. His face, that confident, smiling mug, was on every channel. My first stop was Frankie the Nose Santangelo. His office was a social club in a nondescript brick building in Patterson. The place reeked of cigar smoke and cheap aftershave. 2 large gentlemen with thick necks and thicker accents patted me down before letting me into a back room where Frankie was holding court, eating a plate of calamari and reading the Daily News sports section. "Malone," he said, not looking up. "Haven't seen you since that thing with the missing jukeboxes. What do you want? I'm a busy man, I'm sure. I'm here about Arthur Croft." That got his attention. He put down his paper. His face was a roadmap of old scars and broken capillaries. Tragic. A real tragedy. A great man. A good customer. A customer? For what? Logistics. I provided logistical support. Very sensitive, very confidential. He shrugged, popping a piece of calamari into his mouth. I know nothing about what happened to him. A robbery, maybe? In a locked storage unit? Doesn't seem likely. I heard he was making a final payment to someone. That wouldn't be you, would it, Frankie? His eyes went cold. Watch your mouth, Malone. I'm a legitimate businessman now. I read the Wall Street Journal. I don't know nothing about no payments. And if I did, I certainly wouldn't discuss it with a 2-bit PI who smells like a laundromat. He waved a greasy hand. Now get out of here, I got lunch to finish. I was dismissed. But I'd seen the flicker in his eyes when I mentioned the payment. He knew something. Whether he was the one receiving it or not was the question. My next visit was to Richard Shaw at the Croft Electronics R&D lab. The place was a buzzing hive of activity, full of young guys in lab coats staring at oscilloscopes and soldering circuit boards. Shaw looked like he hadn't slept. He led me into a soundproofed, clean room. "This is a nightmare," he whispered, even though we were alone. "The board of directors is in panic mode. The stock is tanking. And Project Icarus, it's gone." Gone? What do you mean gone? The prototype, the schematics, the research notes, everything. Wiped clean. Someone accessed the secure server and deleted it all. The physical prototype is missing from the vault. So that was it. Corporate espionage. Someone had killed Croft and stolen his golden egg. Who had access? Myself, Mr. Croft, and Cynthia Blair. That's it. The 3 of us. The server logs show the deletion happened late Friday night, after he was already dead. So either Shaw or Cynthia had done it, or someone had forced one of them to do it. What about competitors? Who gains the most from this? Shaw pushed his glasses up his nose. Omnicorp, without a doubt. They're our biggest rivals. They've been trying to poach our engineers for years. Their CEO, William Voigt, is a shark. He'd stop at nothing to get a leg up. I'd heard of Voigt, another titan of industry, known for his ruthless business tactics. It was a lead. I was about to leave when Shaw grabbed my arm. His hand was trembling. "Mr. Malone, there's something else. Something I didn't want to say in front of the police. Or Mrs. Croft." "What is it?" "Mr. Croft. He was paranoid these last few weeks. He thought he was being followed. He had me install a hidden safe in his study at home, behind the bookshelf. He said it was for the most sensitive Icarus materials. A backup. I don't know if the police found it. I doubt it. It's very well hidden." A hidden safe. That was interesting. What's the combination? I don't know. Only he knew that. But he was forgetful. He might have written it down somewhere. I left the lab, my mind racing. A hidden safe. That was my next stop. I drove back to the Croft mansion. The place was crawling with news vans now. Reporters camped out at the gate. I slipped around back, through the woods, and found a side door that Mrs. O'Malley had shown me the day before. The house was silent, eerily so. I made my way to the study. The police had been through it, but it still looked orderly. I went to the bookshelf Shaw had described. It took me 10 minutes of running my hands along the edges before I found the hidden catch. A soft click, and a section of the shelf swung inward, revealing a small steel wall safe. A combination lock. No keyhole. I couldn't pick it. I needed that combination. I thought about what Shaw said. Croft was forgetful. He would have written it down. But where? Somewhere he could access it easily. But somewhere hidden. My eyes fell on the framed photo on his desk. Him and Evelyn on the sailboat. I picked it up. It was a heavy silver frame. I turned it over. Clipped to the cardboard backing was a small, white index card. On it, in that same precise script, was a 6-digit number. Bingo! I punched the numbers into the safe. The lock disengaged with a heavy thunk. I turned the handle and pulled the door open. Inside wasn't what I expected. There were no schematics, no microchips. There was a stack of bundled $100 bills. A lot of them. A passport. Brazilian. In the name of John Smith, but with Arthur Croft's picture. And a single unmarked VHS tape. I took the tape and the money evidence, I told myself, and closed the safe, leaving everything else. I needed a VCR. I drove to a seedy motel off Route 4, paid for a room in cash, and hooked up the dusty VCR on top of the TV. I slid the tape in and hit play. The screen fizzed with static, then resolved into a grainy, slightly wobbly image. It was a hotel room, a nice one, and there was Arthur Croft. He wasn't alone. He was in bed with a woman, and it wasn't Evelyn. The woman had her back to the camera, long dark hair cascading down her back. Then she turned, laughing at something Croft said. It was Cynthia Blair, his executive assistant. The tape was time-stamped, October 15th, just a few weeks ago. So the devoted husband was playing around with his assistant. It was a classic story. But was it a motive for murder? For Evelyn, maybe. A crime of passion. For Cynthia, a lover spat. Or was there more to it? I ejected the tape. I now had a blackmail tape, a suitcase of cash, and a fake passport. Arthur Croft wasn't just a victim. He was a man who was planning to run. From what? From whom? My head was spinning. I needed to talk to Cynthia Blair. I caught her just as she was leaving the office for the day. She looked tired, stressed, her severe demeanor cracked. She jumped when I fell into step beside her in the parking garage. "Mr. Malone, you scared me. We need to talk, Cynthia. I've told you everything I know. The police have been questioning me all day. I'll bet they have. But I don't think you've told them everything. I don't think you've told them about your and Mr. Croft's extracurricular activities." She stopped dead, her face draining of all color. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do. October 15th. The Hilton on Route 17. Ring any bells?" She leaned against her car, a sensible Toyota, looking like she was about to be sick. "Oh, God. How long has it been going on?" "A year," she whispered, her voice breaking. "We were in love. He was going to leave her. He promised. We were going to go away together. He had it all planned." With a suitcase full of cash and a Brazilian passport? She looked at me, shocked. "You know about that." "I know he was planning to run. But not with you, Cynthia. The passport was for one, John Smith, not John and Jane Smith." The revelation hit her like a physical blow. She sagged against the car. "What?" "No, that's not true. He loved me. He said we'd be together. He was playing you, just like he was playing everyone else. What's Project Icarus, really, Cynthia? And don't give me the company line." Tears were streaming down her face now, smudging her mascara. "It was a fraud," she sobbed. "A complete sham. The chip didn't work. It could never work. The physics were all wrong. He'd sunk millions into it, investors' money. He was leveraged to the hilt. When it failed, the company was going to collapse. He was going to be ruined. He was going to jail. The pieces slammed together. Project Icarus. He'd flown too close to the sun, all right. It was a lie. A massive billion-dollar lie. He wasn't killed for the technology. He was killed because he was about to be exposed. Or because he'd cheated the wrong people. The final payment," I said. "To who, Cynthia? Who was he paying off?" "I don't know. Honestly, he handled that himself. He was terrified. He said if he could just make this one last payment, everything would be okay. He said we could disappear, but he'd been planning to disappear alone, leaving her, his wife, his company, his investors, holding the bag. Did you know he was going to run without you? I asked, my voice softer now. She shook her head, a broken woman.
No, I believed him. I loved him.
She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a new, horrible realization. You don't think I killed him? Because he was leaving me? Did you? No. God, no. I was with my sister on Friday night. You can check. I believed her. The grief was too raw, too real. She was just another pawn in Arthur Croft.